Anthony Smith recently lost out on a fight against Jamahal Hill, and he was nothing but frustrated. The worst part is, he found out about the whole thing 3 seconds before it was announced to the world. We have to say we feel for Smith. If you want to figure out the Smith's dilemma in more detail, we recommend sticking around till the end of the video. Let's get right into it. First up, how did Smith find out about him losing the fight? Now, Anthony Smith is no stranger to controversy and understands why what recently happened to him ended up happening. A last-minute change-up in a light heavyweight matchup is nothing new. However, that still didn't stop him from feeling upset and getting angry. We mean, who can blame the guy? He got screwed over big time. After a split draw in the main event of UFC 282, the boss, Dana White, didn't waste any time in announcing that another title fight would be happening shortly. That fight would be between Teixiera and Jamahal Hill. The only problem was that originally, Hill was supposed to face off against Anthony Smith. Things get even worse as we go on with the story. Anthony Smith was working as a fight analyst at UFC 282 when the news was announced. He had to be a part of the announcement that threw all of the hard work he put in during the last few months straight into the garbage. We don't know about you, but we'd cut Anthony Smith some slack for his reaction. Now, seconds after the whole thing was announced, he found himself on the MMA House alongside Ariel Helwani. However, Anthony Smith isn't the type to stay quiet if he feels like he's been wronged. He didn't waste any time in airing his disappointment with the announcement of the fight and made it clear that he was pretty upset. Next up, what was his initial reaction? Soon after the fight was announced, Anthony Smith was sitting along Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour talking about the whole thing. During the whole episode, when talking about the upcoming fight between Teixiera and Hill, Smith proceeded to air out his frustrations and talk about how frustrated he felt with the way things were. He started by talking about how the ESPN producer Jake Leibovitz tried to give him a heads up about the announcement, but unfortunately, it was mere seconds before the whole thing was announced to the general public as well. We're not gonna lie, the fact that Smith didn't even know that he'd lost his fight until just a few seconds before makes the UFC come off as really sleazy. He talked about how he's not the type of person to whine about having a terrible life, but it's no lie when he says that he's been on the receiving end of a lot of hard times recently. He's had to go through a large number of surgeries, had to deal with a few losses in the octagon due to injury, and even had to go through the passing of his mother. We're not gonna lie, that's enough to bring the average person to their knees. Imagine the fact that he had to deal with all of this while having to continuously push through and prepare for a fight that he would later find out, that too last minute, that he'd been snubbed from. It does suck a lot. Coming up, does Smith feel angry with the UFC? Now, Anthony Smith is a pretty understanding person. If there's one good quality this man has, it's the fact that he doesn't take things like these personally and understands that at the end of the day, it's not in anybody's hands because it was simply a better business decision. However, you can't help but feel sorry for the guy. Even though he'd been screwed over big time, he didn't lose his composure. He talked about how he understood everybody's position. We mean, think about it. Jamahal Hill was offered a title shot. Why would he, being in his right mind, turn that down? We don't think anyone would. With that being said, Smith said that he understood that it's all just business at the end of the day. He talked about how, even with everything considered, it still didn't stop him from feeling upset and angry. Now, he did go ahead and clarify that he wasn't angry at anyone in particular. It was just a matter of being frustrated at the fact that he kept getting dealt a bad hand of cards in his life. You gotta feel for the guy. He went on to talk about how he wasn't mad at Jamahal or the UFC, but instead was just frustrated and bitter at his circumstances in life. He's not wrong. It looks like the man just can't seem to catch a break. We hope that for his sake, he manages to get something good to happen to him sometime soon. Finally, should he have lost this fight? If we're being honest, it makes sense that he lost this fight. As we mentioned before, it's simply a matter of business, and it just made a whole lot of sense for Jamahal Hill to accept a shot at the light heavyweight title as opposed to facing off against Anthony Smith. That being said, we're in no way saying that what happened to Smith is in any way fair. It's a terrible situation to be in. Almost everything seems to be going wrong for Smith, and his career is suffering because of it. The best we can do at this point is hope that things get better and the guy gets the shot he wants soon. Now, let's check out what advice Chael Sonnen had to offer Anthony Smith. First up, what happened to Anthony Smith? Chael Sonnen recently offered his opinion on what he thought Anthony Smith should do now that he's been cast aside and has lost his fight against Jamahal Hill. We think it's time to face facts and accept that there's nothing he can do at this point except to try and figure out his next move. The faster he does that, the better. Now, in case you're wondering what happened to him and skip through the entire first half of this video, let's just give you a quick rundown of what happened. Anthony Smith was slated to fight against Jamahal Hill and was at the UFC 282 event working as an analyst. Now, he was slated to appear on the MMA Hour alongside Ariel Helwani. Just a few seconds before he got on the show, he heard the announcement that his matchup against Jamahal Hill had been cancelled and that Hill would now be facing Teixiera in a bit for the light heavyweight title. We're not gonna lie, it's a more exciting bout, but we can't help but feel bad for the guy. Next up, what did Sonnen have to say? Chael Sonnen, being Chael Sonnen, decided that he just had to step in and try to help out Anthony Smith and impart some wisdom on what his next move should be. He talked about how it shouldn't just be Jamahal Hill Hill, who makes the trip to Brazil. Instead, Anthony Smith should be named the official backup fighter for the matchup. Sonnen was ready to prove why he was right, and according to him, Anthony Smith had just had an opportunity to fight taken away from him. Now we know that he was coming off of a loss, so putting him in as a backup fighter for a championship fight would be a bit of a problem. However, it's still a chance. For all of you guys who are still doubting whether this would be a good move, Chael added to his argument by providing us with an analogy in the form of LeBron James. He talked about how he'd once seen LeBron lose on a Tuesday and be crowned world champion on a Friday, so to say that Anthony Smith didn't deserve this shot was preposterous. Coming up, is it wise to do as Sonnen says? We're not gonna lie, it's not bad advice. Think about it. Even though he's not guaranteed a fight, he still manages to get two things out of this. The first thing is the fact that now there's a tiny chance that all the work he put in preparing for Jamahal Hill won't go to waste, and instead he's going to get a chance to put his skills to the test. The second thing is the fact that this will give his training a purpose again. See, if he doesn't have a fight to prep for, he's going to end up doing one of two things. He's either going to start easing back into his training or taking it easy, or he's going to wander into training without a specific goal in mind. At least this way, he gets to focus on a specific goal. The best part is that if Smith does end up stepping in to replace a fighter, he'd be able to fight for the belt. That's something a lot of fighters out there would kill for. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, and something like that just doesn't come around often. So either way you look at it, it's a big win for Smith. At least this way, he won't go home empty-handed. Finally, what happens with Smith now? Well, as it turns out, Smith decided to take Chael's advice and was recently named the official backup fighter for the Hill vs. Teixiera fight. That's pretty good news for someone who just a small while ago had been thrown to the dogs like he was a nobody. We're not gonna lie, we're pretty happy for the guy. Now it's just a matter of waiting for the actual fight to happen. It's only then that we'll get to see which fighters end up on the weighing scale. For Smith's sake, we hope he gets a shot at the glory he's always wanted. Until that happens, we think it's best if he continues to focus on his training and is ready to face either fighter. Now, he's probably very well prepared to face off against Hill. However, he's going to need to put in some serious effort and take some time to study Teixiera and check out his weaknesses. If this was any other fight, it would be okay to go in a little unprepared, but this is a title fight after all. You wouldn't want to blow it because you never know when you'd get a shot like this again. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Anthony Smith will end up fighting for the title? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one. Anthony Smith recently lost out on a fight against Jamahal Hill, and he was nothing but frustrated. The worst part is, he found out about the whole thing 3 seconds before it was announced to the world. We have to say we feel for Smith. If you want to figure out the Smith's dilemma in more detail, we recommend sticking around till the end of the video. Let's get right into it. First up, how did Smith find out about him losing the fight? Now, Anthony Smith is no stranger to controversy and understands why what recently happened to him ended up happening. A last-minute change-up in a light heavyweight matchup is nothing new. However, that still didn't stop him from feeling upset and getting angry. We mean, who can blame the guy?